there, welcome back to my channel. We are at another question and answer day, my 2 cents. I have taken some questions from you out there about finances or other, and I'm willing to answer them here. So let's dive on in. The first is from Karen Renee. Karen says, I'm turning the big 3-0 this year. Cue the paper bag breathing. Should our spending change in our 30s versus our 20s, and in what way? Karen, turning 30 isn't going to be as bad as you think it is. Just always put in perspective that 30 is just a number. Okay, but as far as your question goes about spending and how it should change in our 30s versus our 20s, there's not anything in specific that you need to be changing. However, what I often see is that people in their 30s will stall their retirement savings just to meet the current demands of their lifestyle, whether that's their kids or their home or whatever it is that they're getting into. We need to remember that time moves very fast, and before long we will be at that point of retirement. And so even though we have those higher cost demands now on our income, we need to keep saving for retirement. So don't stall your retirement savings just because we have kids, or we want to make home improvements, or we want to do a whole bunch of things with our money. Make sure you're always saving. My next question is from Kendall Yoder. Kendall Yoder says, is my baby going to be a boy or girl? Because I know Kendall has one girl already. So statistically speaking, this baby number 2 should be a girl. And when it is a girl, Kendall, I hope you'll name her after me. Speaking of babies, Amanda Kurtz asks, when is an appropriate time to begin a college savings plan? Can you start before having children? Also, what happens to the money if your child decides not to attend college? So there are a couple of different ways that you can save for your child's education. 3 in specific that are the traditional methods of doing so. The first is called an UTMA or an UGMA, Uniform Transfer to Minors Act, or Uniform Gift to Minors Act, depending on what state you are in. And that is a gift to your child in your child's name. Your child does have full access to the account once they become of age. They could take it to buy a car, have a really, really fun senior trip, or they could use it, be responsible, and actually use it for college. The second option is called a Coverdell ESA, Education Savings Account. You're allowed to put in $2,000 every single year. Money saved can either be used for college, or you can use it for private school education, for high school or middle school. The third option is the most popular option for saving for college, and it is called a 529 plan. Money can grow tax deferred, and if used for college expenses, you can take it out tax-free. If you take money out for some other purpose than that, there will be a 10% penalty. Each state has its own 529 sponsored plan. For Ohio, the 529 sponsored plan is BlackRock. As long as you're using the BlackRock 529 plan in Ohio, then you are able to take that $2,000 state tax deduction. Benefits of using a 529 are that there are no limits as far as what you can put in. So if you are really wanting to stockpile away for college expenses, you can do that. The other advantage is you can transfer money from one child to the next. So let's say child number 1 decides not to go to college. You can transfer those dollars to child number 2. All right, going on to our next question. Best Vitamix recipe?
How'd that question get back in here?
When I gave this last my 2 cents, the question and answer, a lot of people liked my Vitamix recipe. So I figured I'll make this a part of all of my question and answers and give you one recipe that I love for my Vitamix. So the recipe this week is called Nice Cream. Coconut Nice Cream. Nice Cream, if you are not familiar with it, is a way to eat ice cream without all the calories or the dairy. So in my family we have somebody who is lactose intolerant, so we're looking for ways to avoid dairy and calories, if we're being honest. What you do is you take very ripe bananas, you chop them up, and you put them in the freezer. Once they're frozen, you put them in your Vitamix, add a little bit of coconut milk, a little bit of cinnamon, and you have a delightful after dinner treat. We can give it to our kids without them getting that sugar spike. Always a bonus. My next question comes from Brian Brinkman. He says, are there higher return options other than the stock market for investing? Brian, this is a great question, and the answer is yes, but it depends on how much effort you want to put into it and or what type of relationship you want to have with the person that you give the money to. Let's say you decide to go to the flea market and you find a nice antique piece of furniture. And you take that antique piece of furniture, you fix it up a little bit, and you resell it. You're probably gonna make a couple extra $100. Pretty cool. That takes effort on your part. It might be a higher return for your investment than the stock market is giving, but you are having to tangibly, actively go to the flea market, fix up the furniture, find a buyer. Another thing I often hear is, yeah, but real estate is a lot more lucrative than the stock market, which can be true. You can buy a poor looking home, fix it up, and flip it, and make quite a bit of money on that. But again, you are actively participating in that flip. And when I think about investing for retirement, I want that to be as hands-off, as automatic as possible. Because the more automated I can be with my retirement savings, the easier it is for me to achieve my goals. So the other thing I hear from people is, yeah, but the return I get in my business or the return I could get in my friend's business is a lot better than the stock market. Again, this can be true. Businesses can have quick growth sometimes, but there's a lot of risk associated there. First of all, if it's your own business, not only is your current income contingent upon the success of the business, but you're putting your retirement savings contingent upon the success of your business. That is a lot of pressure for your business. And if you choose to put money in a friend or family member's business, that can be a great way to grow your money as well, depending on the business. Make sure you're doing your due diligence on how it's being run. However, it does change the relationship that you have with that friend or family member. So that might be something worth doing with some of the extra savings you have on hand, but not necessarily those retirement savings. Okay, my final question here is from Mike Snyder. Mike says, senior citizen on a fixed income here. Living comfortable now, but would like to know what you and the industry feel an appropriate amount of donations to causes for primary concern. Always the fear that if you give away too much, there might not be enough left at the end. If you know what I mean. Thanks. As we are in our working years, we are a lot more free with our money because we are active, we are in control of those dollars that we earn. Once we change into our retirement years, it's a little bit different. Your paycheck is not contingent upon your efforts. It is contingent upon our pension, Social Security, our investment income. That is outside of our control. And therefore, it can feel a little bit daunting when we think about how much we can be spending each month to make sure that nest egg continues on for the entirety of our life. With that said, no matter what category it is that makes you feel that anxiety, in this case we're talking about donations, we need to make that expense a fixed expense. So my husband and I recently did this within our own budget. We knew that we wanted to be giving money away, but at the same time we don't want that to interrupt our saving for retirement or midterm, nor do we want it to interrupt what we're doing in our everyday, those things that we have to get accomplished with our budget. We developed a percentage of our monthly paycheck that we are willing to give away. We call this our ALK Fund. Either of us are A-OK, hence the name, to take money and give it away. So that can be buying Girl Scout cookies. That can be taking a friend to lunch. That can be donating to our favorite cause. Whatever that donation is, we're able to do that freely between us, and we know what our limits are. So for easy math, let's say that we start with $100. Write that in a prominent place within our house. Then let's say I bought 3 boxes of Girl Scout cookies, which I bought several more than that. And I have those Girl Scout cookies which cost $12. I cross out the $100, put in $88, subtracting out the $12. My husband and I both know what is left within that month that we can give away. Inevitably, at some point in the month, that AOK fund goes to zero.
What happens then?
That cause comes to you and says, would you be willing to give money towards our cause? And you say, definitely yes. And I'm going to cut you that check next month. You are cash flowing those donations that you are giving. You are fitting it within your lifestyle so that you don't have to live outside of your means. That way, you can continue giving to that organization long term, which is really what they want to. Win-win for all. All right, friends, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. This has been an excellent My 2 cents. If you have a question that you would like me to answer, please feel free to go to the Pleasant Wealth Facebook page and direct message me with those questions that you have. With all of that, I will leave you, and you take care.